Joining me today we have two great Australians, representatives of Freemasonry, representatives of the Northern Territory and two recognised citizens, Dr. Valerie Asche and the Honourable Mr. Justice Asche. Thanks for joining us. Austin, can I firstly turn to you and talk a little bit about one of your passions, which is the law. You have been a prominent lawyer, as your father has before you. What brought you to the law, and what particular branches of the law have really interested you or given you the most satisfaction?
I suppose it was my father to begin with, and there were other members of my family who had been in the law, so I was practically destined for it.
And you were the first Victorian judge appointed to the Family Law Court?
Yes, the very first Victorian judge appointed to the Family Court, yes.
You've obviously spent a lot of time in the law. You've been well recognised for that. You're a Queen's Counsel. You've been the Chief Justice.
Chief Justice of the Northern Territory.
Of the Northern
yes.
Territory. You've even been the Chief Administrator of the Northern Territory, to which your Northern Territorians are very proud. What's given you the most satisfaction in that career, do you think?
Oh, everything, being in the Territory. But don't get me wrong, I spent many years in Victoria and loved Melbourne, loved Melbourne people. But the Territory was just a better place for me because I'd been brought up there as a kid, and I was regarded it as home.
Beside a good man is an even better woman, and we have that in Dr. Valerie, a Master of Science, honorary doctorate in microbiology, and dedicated a lifetime to that. Do you see that there are any synergies? What's kept you together with these two busy careers that you've been pursuing over 40 or so years?
Yes, well, after some years of marriage, I left the university and went to the Queen Victoria Medical Centre, and there they had a very big practice in artificial insemination by donor, IVF and other assisted pregnancies. We were doing 200 couples a month with artificial insemination by donor, the donors all coming from sporting clubs, and then a very large number of people who'd failed in that particular clinic went on to IVF.
I was very interested in reading about you, Valerie, that at an early age you were diagnosed with tuberculosis and had been hospitalised for some 3 years.
Yes.
That must have been a great shock, but perhaps something that made you more determined through your career. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, to begin with, I'd never heard of the word tuberculosis. Consumption was the word that came from all Jane Austen's novels and things like that. And I'd only been at the university a term when I developed pleurisy, and then found myself sent out to a sanatorium, and I was there off and on for 3 years. And at the end of it all, I had suffered bed rest, operations, and all before antibiotics. Well, in a way, I suppose I learnt how medicine has changed enormously with antibiotics. In fact, tuberculosis people now don't seem to go to bed at all. They just get drugs.
But this whole experience was the subject of a book called Walking My Baby Back Home, which was something you wrote for both general consumption and for medicos,
yes,
to teach them something about treating tuberculosis without antibiotics.
Well, in Darwin we have a university has a new medical school, and it has a nursing department. And I really, although I wrote the book for my family, I found that the university were very interested in it, that it was launched there and sold in their bookshop to show students what life was like before antibiotics.
With your busy careers and your obvious dedication to those careers and to the education of others in those specific areas, how have you found time to be involved in Freemasonry? Austin, you've risen to the top of Freemasonry in Victoria. You were Freemasons Victoria's Grand Registrar, its legal representative, and then its Grand Master during the mid-80s.
Yeah. Well, the short answer to that is that I couldn't have done anything as well as I have done, if I have done it well, without Freemasonry. I think it's been one of the great guiding spots in my life. It's been wonderful to leave the legal scene from time to time and move into people, citizens of from all walks of life in the community as Freemasons, representing the best part of the community. And I say that advisedly because everyone's got their faults, but these are men trying to be good men. They're not always succeeding. But wherever you go, you're met with a welcome, you're met with goodwill, and it's one of the most wonderful things I know, and I am very proud of the fact that I have been a Freemason and will continue to be for the rest of all my life.
I think the greatest accolade that we could give you is recognition of your achievements and the fact that you are very humble, very diffident people, but great examples to Freemasonry and the community today. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for making time with us today.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.